Antonio and I bonded early on for so many reasons. One of the core areas of alignment is this mutual focus that we have in identifying and backing mission-driven entrepreneurs. You know, at DBL, we made it part of our firm name, calling ourselves Double Bottom Line. And you've had this long history of backing Tesla, SpaceX, Zipline, Anduril, and you've really built the firm on this idea of service to your companies. Tell everyone what's led you to believe that mission alignment is so critical to selecting great companies, great founders, and how do you actually determine the authenticity of whether a company and entrepreneur are truly mission-driven?
It's a great question, man. So, you know, I started my career doing buyouts of industrial companies. Why I knew how to help fix a factory, you know, and just decided at one point with my partners, we just didn't want to do this anymore. We had this technology business running at the same time. We invested in Tesla and Fund 1 and Fund 2 and found that definitional experience to be inspiring. And the first reason was we just wanted to do it. We wanted to spend our life's energy making the world better. I feel like we lived a life of service, and we were in the investment business. So how do you make the investment business work for you in this way, this emotional connection to making humanity better? Well, you simply invest in companies you believe make the world better, as you do and we do. And I think when we started doing it in the 2000s, it was not a thing.
No.
It became a thing, and now it's like back to not being a thing, but it's our thing. So it's I think you're just a lot happier if you live a life of service, however you want to express that. And we were in the investment business, we expressed the investment business. And I come from a family, as you know, of healthcare professionals, and I think that's just kind of ingrained. And then, what we also learned is, hey, mission orientation attracts the very best people.
Yes.
So as an economic matter, as an emotional matter, and as a matter like what's your drive and what's your intrinsic drive to work, it was great for the firm. As an economic matter, we learned that when we found companies that were truly mission-driven and entrepreneurs are mission-driven, they then attracted the best people to that mission. Yeah. And so if you want to win in any game, anything you're doing, the step number one is get the best people on your side. And look, the company we worked on, Tesla, in the early days it was harder, but the reason wonderful people, amazing human beings showed up to work at that company when it was dire straits, we were going bankrupt multiple times, is because they believed in the mission. They believed in the mission of a sustainable future. They believed in the mission of electric cars. They believed in Elon, and it's a little bit believed in us, and we could actually figure it out. But they believed. Yeah. And that belief is so motivational in the darkest moments. If you're there for money, in dark times, people just, you can't find them. They're like scurrying under the chairs, and they're running for the hills. In great times, as you said, man, the best people, they find a new gear. Yeah. They find a new gear, and we saw it at Tesla over and over again. And so we've seen this in many companies now. And how the way we find it is we actually write a small check, a bigger check, a bigger check. And our strategy, like yours, we scale our positions over time. And you'll know in about 6-12 months if someone is real. I think you'll see it. If they're really motivated by the economics and the exits and whatever else, or are they motivated by a firm belief in mission that they are doing the right thing to change the world? Yeah, well said. We both share this coming from entrepreneurial roots. As Antonio knows, my grandparents immigrated to the U.S. with no money. They started 8 companies. It wasn't because the first 7 were very successful. They kept at it. The 8th turned out to be a success over time, but it was that grit and tenacity that defined them. And you too, entrepreneurship was central to your upbringing. Yeah. I know you've talked a lot about your mom running the lingerie store and inspiring really your early work in business. And I love the story. Antonio's mom helped him buy $300 of Apple stock in middle school. Yep. You still own that today? I still have it today.
Still own it today? I know that my grandparents helped shape my worldview on companies and building and working with entrepreneurs. Talk about your mom's example in these formative years and the example it set and how it actually translates into who and how you invest today.
Yeah, my parents are immigrants, right? So I was my mother from Spain, my father from Goa. They met in Spain. My parents came here. My mother spoke no English, and I was the only one born here in my family, and that first generation of kids. My mom actually passed away when I was in high school, so she's very near and dear to my heart. She started this lingerie boutique when I was end of lower school, middle school, and she started it because she had a friend who had a double mastectomy in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and she could only go to a pharmacy called White and White. I still remember the name of the place, White and White, to be fitted for a prosthesis. They didn't do reconstructive surgeries those days. My mom was trained as a pharmacist in Spain and didn't practice here in the U.S. So she started this lingerie boutique. It sold all the regular stuff that women would buy, and then they fitted prosthesis there. And it was sort of this combination of passion she had. She loved lingerie and she wanted to help her community, but even that was service, right? So as an entrepreneur, she was serving, and I grew up in that store, seeing how she treated people. She taught me math on the little books in the back with the big green spreadsheets, the actual spreadsheets. I wrote the numbers in. I did stock and stuff in the back after school. And I just watched how she went through the world and how she cared about the people that came in, how she cared about the worked for, and she cared about the people. She was in a mall. She cared about like the maintenance people in the mall. And I learned that, being a great entrepreneur, we think about this as sort of like the culty entrepreneur. You see them on TV or up on Forbes. What it really means is you care about the people that work for you and the impact in your communities and the way you touch them and the way you motivate them, inspire them, no matter how small the business or how big the business, it's the same thing.
Lest you think this is rhetoric, the first firm that Antonio founded was out of an homage to his mom, named MG Capital, her initials.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I love Antonio for so many reasons, but he has so many unique worldviews. We spent countless hours talking about just business and life, but one of the things that you've coined is this term proentropic for companies and entrepreneurs that thrive amid increasing chaos, whether it be from tech disruptions or climate volatility or geopolitical shift. What is this proentropic term, and how do you apply it to how you think about investing?
Yeah, the first thing, it's hard to understand. My partners, I started thinking about this back in like 2010, 2013, when we realized that the combination of deglobalization and technological change is going to really shift all the power structures globally. Yeah. And I think it wouldn't let me say it for like 3 years. But once the entropy, in physics, basically entropy is increasing over time. And, it can't be reduced to zero and it continues to grow. I think this is happening now. You're seeing this expressed in the world. And the period post-World War II was like an anomaly in that it felt like it came down. That was the anomaly. The reality is the world has been tending toward more chaos and more volatility as human population has gotten bigger and technology has changed. So that's how we think about it. We're looking for businesses that, like SpaceX we're both invested in, businesses that are really good at predicting that future state and figuring out where to go. Yeah. So it's not just that they're in a market today they think works, but they are baked into their strategy and in their people is a way of thinking about the world that's probabilistic, that really takes into account what might happen at the edge cases and actually benefits from them.
Yeah.
That's what I think about it.
When I think back and reflect on the years that we served on this Tesla board, one of the things we both learned is that conviction is never built in calm waters. It's built on chaos. And there's so many stories around just, surmounting what seemingly was impossible odds and the operational challenges that ultimately strengthen the resolve. You touched on it, but talk a bit about the idea of building conviction over time. I think it's really one of the things that defines you and the Valor strategy, and how that early experience of overcoming those odds has led to that conviction building in the years since.
Yeah, so the name of the firm Valor means courage with honor in Spanish, Valor, right? So it has a double entendre in English and Spanish. And going back to my mother, that was the last thing my mother said to me before she died was "Sé valiente," be courageous. And this idea of building conviction is very important. We have this poster in one of our offices in Chicago that actually is a single tree standing in the lake, kind of after a storm, bruised and battered, but it's still there. And that's how I think about it. It requires courage. We're going into a period of time and into a period now in the economy where if you really want to build a better world, you're going to have moral courage and courage of your convictions to do the right thing, despite what might seem to be unbelievable odds. That's the reality. And whenever you are standing alone, you're either very right or very wrong. Yeah. And it requires courage. It requires courage of you and the people around you, my partners. I'm so grateful for you together. We did this together. And hopefully when you have to have that courage, you have a few people around you like Ira. You can hold hands and you can do it together. If you're all by yourself, it's super lonely. But I hope for all of you, you're able to hold hands with a few good people that you trust and go for it. Because the world needs more people to show courage to do the right thing, hold hands, and go for it. Yeah. And I hope that if you leave this room with anything, any message, it's that. Cultivate that courage. It isn't easy, and it doesn't come out of the box that way. People mostly, the human brain tends toward more fear than courage, but cultivate that courage.
It's easy to say in retrospect, but when you think back of the names that one was called for actually having that courage and conviction at the time when it was contrarian.
Yeah.
Very, very different than.
Courage. Courage is not it's not the absence of fear. We're not stupid. Okay, we're not dumb. We're not so smart, but we're not that dumb. It wasn't that we weren't afraid. We just overcame it.
Yeah. It's back to the mission.
Yeah. That's back to mission.
Yeah. One of the things in knowing you as long as we have is the way you think about culture. Easy maybe in the early days with a smaller team, but as we've both built firms, keeping that culture and keeping the values is something that requires everyday intentionality. As you've built Valor now, you've 50 or so people?
125 people.
125 people. See, I'm a minute and a half dated
year.
here. Yeah, exactly, exactly. But you have these core values that you've always talked about in terms of building the firm. How do you actually infuse that at the firm level as you scale?
Yes, so the values are humility, integrity, responsibility, and excellence. And we wrote these down back in 2002 when we started. And, we live them. We live them as the senior partners of the firm have to live it. You have to model your behavior. It's almost like a family, It actually is like a family. You have to model behavior for everyone in the firm. And you have to really, I'd say, make sure they're adhered to with great discipline. Yeah. That's one. And two, we have an ethos of servant leadership, as you know, right?
Yep.
In all our conference rooms around the country, there's this Lao Tzu quote, which basically says, "A leader is best, and the people say we do this ourselves." And that informs all the operations work we do. And it's always about our companies. It's always about our entrepreneurs. It's never about us. I don't want it to be about us. It's about the company. It's about the mission. It's about the entrepreneurs. It's about the people, the team. Yeah. And I think that is, if you hire right, people want that. But you got to make it about somebody else. It can't be about you.
Yeah, you have so many investment themes that you've been pursuing, and as you've watched these technology waves crash into real-time opportunities, we're at this unique moment where AI compute hunger and energy infrastructure and frontier hardware are creating an opportunity, and you've operationalized that with massive support at the XAI and now SpaceX scale. How do you think about this convergence, and how do you think about, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out here in the area of climate tech and hardware and energy. How do you think about what you're doing and how it might apply to some lessons and learnings for so many of the entrepreneurs out there?
It's interesting. I'll draw a lesson from Tesla, okay, which we both know. You know a lot more than I do these days, but about the A4 chip in a Tesla is significantly inferior to an H200 chip, and yet it runs the most advanced artificial intelligence in the world. Yeah. This is the truth. One of the most complex things a human does is drive a car, and all this inference is happening at the edge on the chip in the car, right? So what does that tell us? That tells us you can build great stuff with not a lot of compute if you know how to integrate the software and the hardware. So for all of your entrepreneurs, sure, it'd be great if you have access to all the compute in the world. Maybe you don't. Don't be discouraged. Just remember the Tesla. Go get in a car. If you don't have one, go to the store and have them give you a test drive and see how amazing the autopilot is. And you'll say, whoa, they're running this thing at the edge, inference, on a chip that's worse than H200. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. But there's because there's this arms race in capital spending, and everyone focused on the capital spending, no one focused on the efficiency. What really matters is, what is the cost of $1 of intelligence, one token that actually is intelligent. If you use that compute way more efficiently, you're going to be much more efficient producing intelligence per token than you actually are just massively trying to ram it with huge amounts of money, because of the experiences I think that Elon had at Tesla that he's now porting over, knowing you can build this cheaper, faster, better, better networking, better coherence, integration of software to be the most efficient. And it's just like a brain. If you have a huge brain but you can't talk, you can't communicate, it doesn't matter, right?
You are known for doing what most VCs and investors don't do, which is you dive deep in your companies. It's not in rhetoric. It's in the human cycles that you and the team put into the companies. And one of the things I've watched you do is you develop insights that you apply not only in helping that company, but in applying it to new investments over time by really getting in the trenches and being at ground zero with companies. Just give some examples of that, because I think it's such an important and differentiated thing that you and Valor do.
And so look at the ones we did together, right? We did 3 different operational rotations, so a year plus at Tesla, launching the Roadster, launching the Model S, then launching Model 3, which we're sleeping in the factory. Tim and I, and with my partner Tim Watkins, by the way, who's amazing and genius. I'd be remiss that I might have mentioned him. Yeah. And then we did sales a couple of times too. Same thing, right? Sales infrastructure, and then that we've ported those into several companies. We now think of our scale group, which is our operations team, as these are not productized. Yeah. So lean operations for a factory, it's productized. Sales infrastructure is productized. Lean for software deployment, productized. And we just did one at Zipline. We spent a year at Zipline working on breaking the bottlenecks there with the team in production manufacturing to create effect. The company's scaling like crazy. So yeah, we have learned to productize these things and then move them across companies.
You are a constant learner. I always learn from you, and I think it'd be helpful to just talk about, how do you learn?
I think there's a couple of things going on. One is I have the privilege of being able to meet with and talk to really smart people. So if I have an idea and I want to like gather a set of people around this, I do that, and I really am not shy about asking questions.
And you dive deep.
Yeah, I dive deep. Yeah. So we have a staff neuroscience staff. Like I got interested in neuroscience. I got interested in the analogy between the human brain and real neural networks in your head and artificial neural networks. And so we hired a staff neuroscience at Caltech, and I talked to her every week. We'd like go deep on writing research papers. It's an example. And then I read a lot. I hope everyone here just doesn't forget in the age of artificial intelligence, don't read the summary, read the thing. There's actually a lot of data in that thing, and there's also, at some level, I think if you don't do that, you lose the ability to do it.
Right.
There's something special about the human brain. We've been writing with our hands for a couple thousand years. We haven't been doing this for a couple years. We haven't been doing this for just, 15 years, right? There's something about writing and reading that is inherent in human learning, and I hope we don't forget that.
Yeah. I think I must have been asked a couple dozen times in the last 24 hours by many people here about data centers in space. I know there's some things you can say, some you can't, but give the audience a sense of data centers in space and what's unfolding right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm asked this question often, like, is it real? Like, can it be done? Like, is it like a science project? Well, I've got news for you. There are data centers in space right now, right? So the Starlink satellite is a data center in space. It has an AMD chip. It has a couple of, more than one actually, and it has solar. It moves data, processes data, it moves along by laser between network between satellites, and we have them. Yeah. So I think it's more of a question of engineering scaling. It's not science. It's actually engineering scaling. And then what is the right unit of size for, like, when you think of data center, people think of giant buildings that are football field long. Well, the reality is one NVIDIA rack is a data center.
That's right.
Okay. Whether it's one rack or 5 racks or 10 racks, or you've got 100 megawatts in a hall and you put them together, it just depends on how you want to network the thing. So, and remember, networking, just also all public information here, if you network terrestrially, you run it over fiber. So fiber is very fast. It's speed of light, but faster than that is laser in a vacuum.
Yeah.
So the networking between satellites is extremely fast. So it exists today. The question is just like, how do you scale it up? Not how do you make it work?
Yeah. One of the things I've loved in working together all these years is the number of ways that we've turned assumptions on their head. And one of the core ways that I've seen that unfold is when 30 years ago we were taught outsource. We were taught that you do what you're good at and outsource everything else. And of course, this journey that we've had has been all about vertical integration.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, we were when we ran the connector company we had in the 90s, we sold it because we didn't want to outsource it. We didn't want to outsource and run outsource to Asia. And then when we got back involved in manufacturing, like with Tesla, the first thing we did, my partner Tim Watkins, was run a supply chain analysis. You probably remember this in that morning where we actually ran an analysis of how much capital required to build this Asian supply chain that had already been put in place by management versus insourcing. And the reality is we would need like hundreds of millions of dollars, which by the way in those days was. Today it's like saying I need $100 billion. Okay, I need $200 billion to build a car company in 2007 is like saying today I need $200 billion to do anything. It was absurd. And we're sitting in this meeting with Ira, and we're showing Tim's going through this data, and we're like, oh my, wow, where we get the money? There's no money available, and that decision forced us to move the battery pack back from Thailand, the motor back. We brought it all back from Asia to the U.S. And then the unintended consequence, which ended up being hugely powerful for us, is the engineering iteration was so much faster. Yeah. Which allowed us to bring this cycle time of innovation. The cycle time of innovation in auto is like 7 years. Ours was like 5 years. We brought it to like 3 years. Mm-hmm. You remember seeing these meetings where some of these auto guys were like, "Oh, it can't be done. Like, watch us." Yeah. So it had all these unintended consequences. We then took that and moved it across their companies and learned this lesson. And today, I gave out this book last year at the holiday. Called Freedom's Forge, which is about reindustrializing America before World War II. Yeah. And it's super important, man. And we are at the forefront of this. I mean, we're trying to help as much as we can, but all of you here are working in atoms. I mean, we need to reindustrialize America. It's a strategic imperative now, and we have the tools. Yeah. We know how to do it. We just got to get it done. Yeah.
Let's end on a bit of a note of prognostication. This is a talk about seeing around corners, and if the past is prologue, we can expect that there's going to be these unexpected and sharp turns ahead. And so when we come back for either the 5 or the 10-year reunion here at the Upfront Summit and are talking about things, what are some of the surprises that when we come in 5 and 10 years, we're going to be talking about that people would be surprised to hear about today?
Man, you know, it's I'm wearing my Star Trek socks today. Okay, I've got my this is my yellow Star Trek socks. I can see those. I wore these. Thank you. It's because the future is probably uncertain.
Yeah.
And I choose to believe in an optimistic future. I think the prevailing narrative is that artificial intelligence can be terrible, job losses, social unrest. What are we going to do before we get to this like post-economic world?
Yeah.
And I think this is not true. In fact, I'm going to work really hard in the next 5 or 10 years to make it not true. And that's the point.
Yeah.
Everyone here will make this not true or true. If you want to live in a terminator future, give yourself in a dystopia, listen to the news media about job losses and how bad the world's going to be. Listen to that, believe it, that's dystopia. But if you want to be courageous and you want to have some compassion for your fellow humans and you want to seek truth, build a world that's better than we have today with the technology. And you can do that. It's in our hands to do this. The reality is, I was talking to a young woman before I came in here.
Yeah.
She was telling me about someone who was up here that built a $1 billion company with 3 people. All these people can lose their jobs. It's going to happen, for sure true. When this happened in the steel industry with mini mills, we actually had a very, very high cost of retraining. People didn't retrain because they were working steel mills. The knowledge workers losing their jobs. They can go across the street, start a company with 3 people, used to take 300 people, that is using low code, no code. Who knows what they will build? And if half the people do that, it's unbelievable what will happen.
Yeah.
The amount of productivity unleashed, the amount of entrepreneurship unleashed, that's what we should work toward. All of you here entrepreneurs, please, go for it, get at it, because we shouldn't just sit down and think it's going to be bad. It's not. We will decide, you will decide if this is good or bad. We will decide whether we have a utopian future or dystopian future. And I bet it would be 5, 10 years, there's someone in this audience, we're going back and go, but that person made it happen, made a difference in the world.
Yeah.
Or more than one, hopefully.
And Tony, I want to end where we started, which is thanking you for being a true partner to so many people out there, including me.
Thank you, Ira.
Please join me in thanking Antonio Gracias.
Thank you, Ira. Thank you. Great, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. Thanks very much.